Fortnite Chapter 6 just dropped last weekend, and with it came a massive new map with loads of loot, a completely new meta, and a brand new solo cash cup format. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the new format and the best loadout for you to succeed in the solo cash cups this season. So, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get into the video, if you want to excel in the solo cash cups this season, the best way you can learn to is by getting Destiny Jesus' solo Masterclass. For only $30, you can get access to over 200 videos telling you how you can easily succeed in solos from one of the best coaches in the world. Link in the description below. So, starting off with the new format. Unlike the last 2 years, solo cash cups aren't victory format anymore, meaning you can't just earn by winning a game. Instead, you now need to come top 600 on any region to qualify to finals, which is a lot less than the 15,000 you qualified for EU finals last season. And then how you place in the finals determines your earnings, just like a traditional tournament. Another thing that's changed is the fact that Opens and Finals are now both 3 hours to play 10 games, which means you're going to have to be a lot more consistent in your games than when you only had 2 hours 7 games. To earn in Finals, it's going to be top 25 on EU and NA Central, top 20 on NA West, and top 15 on all other regions, with the first place EU prize being a massive $8,000. As well as the qualifying format changing, the point format has changed as well. It's now 60 points for a win in Opens and Finals, with 2 points per kill in Opens and 3 points per kill in Finals. The way you get placement is very different now as well. You get 1 point per place, starting at top 50, until top 3, where you get 2, then 4 for second, and 7 for the win. This means placement is a little less top heavy than it has been in the past, so it may be easier for you to do well by doing more consistently, rather than just winning a couple games. This means you're basically going to have to play endgame every game in this tournament, as the format is still really placement heavy, so unless you're a pro, W King isn't going to be a viable strategy to qual. Now we've got the format out the way, I want to talk about the best loadout to be carrying in the solo cash cups this season. Starting off with shotguns, and there are 3 this season: the Sentinel Pump, the Oni Shotgun, and the Twinfire Auto. The Sentinel Pump is probably the best shotgun this season. It's just your classic pump with a low fire rate and pretty high damage per shot. However, one thing players have noticed this season is that this shotgun isn't always the most consistent, and can sometimes just end up hitting basically no damage at all. The headshot for the gold pump is capped below 200, but the mythic pump does exactly 200 to the head. Unfortunately, it still doesn't one pump somebody who is 100-100 because of decimal damage, though that may be a glitch and get fixed soon. Next, there's the Oni shotgun. This only has 2 shots in its mag, so using it is basically just reload simulator. Also, it does very little damage. 2 body shots with the gold one won't even kill someone. The only 2 things that redeem this shotgun slightly are its long range, which could be useful in some circumstances, and the fact it has a slightly faster fire rate than the pump, though this won't be very useful since you can only shoot 2 shots. Overall, this shotgun is terrible and you should avoid carrying it at all costs. The third shotgun in the loot pool this season is the Twinfire Auto. Now this shotgun fires 2 bullets per shot with a magazine of 14, meaning it effectively has 7 shots in its mag. It has a pretty fast fire rate, but doesn't do very much damage at all, and is terrible at range, so it's basically just your standard tactical shotgun downgraded slightly. It also has a ridiculously long reload. You basically can't reload it during a fight, so it's pretty much redundant. It may be good for box jumping, and is still better than the Oni shotgun, but is nowhere near as good as the pump. Now moving on to the main secondary weapons this season. Firstly, we've got the Fury AR. This has a fast fire rate, shooting around 2 shots more per second than the other AR, but does relatively low damage. It reminds me a lot of the Primal AR from Chapter 2 Season 6, which means it's not particularly accurate, so can't be used at long range. However, its fast fire rate does make it viable if you're keying, so keep your game plan in mind when you're choosing which AR to carry. The other and arguably much better AR this season is the Hollow Twister AR. This does have a slightly slower fire rate than the other AR, but does much more damage, 34 at gold compared to the Fury's 26, meaning it does basically the same DPS as the Fury. The massive upside to this AR is the fact that it has a scope, and because it's hit scan, it's really easy to hit shots both up close and at range. This means that, overall, it's probably best for solo cash cups, especially in stacked games, due to its incredible versatility. Also during the secondary weapons section, I'm going to talk about the 2 SMGs in the game. Now obviously you're only going to be carrying an SMG if you're keying, so if you're in stacked opens games or finals, you should be carrying the Hollow Twister AR. One of the 2 SMGs in the game is the Veiled Precision SMG. It has a fast fire rate and decent damage, doing 19 at gold. It's also got a really fast reload, so it's good for keeping up pressure on an opponent during fights. This means it's really good for keying, especially if you can get the mythic, because this does 206 damage per second. It also has a scope, and the damage drop-off isn't atrocious at medium range, so it can be used from further distances than your traditional SMG. The other SMG in the game is the Surgefire SMG, and this gun has a mechanic that hasn't really been seen in Fortnite before. The longer you shoot the gun, the faster its fire rate gets. This means you really have to spray before it's that useful, as it deals less damage than the Veiled Precision and has a really long reload. It also has a lower headshot multiplier than the other SMG. It does have a larger magazine, but the slow reload makes this basically worthless. The Veiled Precision is overall a much better SMG. So, utility. This is probably the section where the most has changed, especially for comp, since as of right now all utility items are enabled and competitive. The item everybody is talking about, and probably the best utility you can carry, is the Void Only Mask. It has 15 charges and works by you shooting an orb, then teleporting to it whenever you want. It has crazy range, meaning it's absolutely insane mobility, making it a must carry in solos. The two main uses of the Void Only Mask are going to be to rotate, whether that be towards zone or to key somebody, or you can also place an orb in a safe place, key someone, then teleport back if you get hit. This is also applicable during endgame on height, because if you keep an orb on height, then you get chopped, you can just teleport back to the orb and take no fall damage. This can be done because shooting an orb doesn't actually use a charge, it's only teleporting to the orb that uses the charge. The only downside is that, if you let the orb hit the floor, other players can see where you're going to teleport to, so it's often better to fire it into the air above where you want to land and teleport in the air, so that other people don't expect it. The other item many pros have been carrying, especially in trios, is the sword. Now this is good mobility, and you should be carrying it if you're not able to find Void Mask. If you sprint and jump with the sword from underneath a ramp or edited cone, it sends you really far. Then you can continue this by sprint jumping and combine it with sliding for some really good mobility. The one thing I would say about this mobility though, is that it looks like Epic are trying to patch this, so this may only be applicable for a short time. One advantage the sword has over the Void Mask is the fact you can use it for a much longer time, and instead of charges it has percentage, so the amount used depends on how far you go. There are three other main utility items in the game right now: the Fire Mask, the Wind Sprite and Shockwaves. I'm not going to talk about Shockwaves because you know what they're like and how they work already, and they shouldn't be carried unless you can't find a mask or a sword. The Fire Mask is the other only mask in the game. It has 8 charges and shoots a slow travelling fireball where you aim your crosshair. Although it does 100 damage to players, it does basically no structure damage, so it's not going to be very useful in any situation. For this reason, you should drop this for heals if you get the opportunity. The Wind Sprite is an interesting addition. It's kind of an NPC which runs around the map and is difficult to catch, so you might have to full piece it, and then when thrown onto the ground it creates a wind funnel, which functions basically just like a launch pad. But once you've thrown it down, you can't get it back unless you fly back down, so it's far less useful than the mask, sword or shockwaves, and should only be taken if you have no other alternative. Finally, heals, and starting off with the other sprite this season, the Water Sprite. Like the Wind Sprite, the Water Sprite is hard to catch, but once you pick it up, it's not bad at all. When you pick it up, you can use it 3 times, and it acts a bit like a shield keg, but for both health and shield. This means it's pretty good meds, but is more applicable to a trio scenario than in solos due to its group healing ability. An item which is much more common this season than in other seasons is the Shieldfish. This is because Epic has increased the spawn rate of Shieldfish from regular fishing with fishing rods, meaning if you have a little bit of time to put aside to do some fishing, getting a stack of Shieldfish shouldn't be that difficult. The main wights this season, unless you can get some floppers, are just medkits, which will still be necessary as stacked opens games and finals games still have the potential to go to heal off. But if you're keying, you can carry bigs and shieldfish, or minis if you can't find any shieldfish. So overall, the best loadout for Chapter 6 Season 1 Solo Cash Cups is a Hollow Twister AR, Sentinel Pump Shotgun, Void Only Mask, then in low elo opens games, bigs and shieldfish, or in stacked opens or finals games, shieldfish and medkits. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and that it can help you to place in the upcoming Solo Cash Cups this season. I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.